Welcome back. As much a part of TV tradition as the Super Bowl itself is the Super Sunday interview of the president by the network televising the big game. This year, that duty fell to Fox, and the interview has produced headlines, most notably about the way in which President Trump regards Russia and that nation's president. Our Ed Berliner explains.
He's also a guy who annexed Crimea, invaded Ukraine, supports Assad in Syria, supports Iran, is trying to undermine our influence in key regions of the world, and according to our intelligence community, probably is the main suspect for the hacking of the DNC computers.
Well, nobody knows that for a fact, but do you want me to start naming some of the things that President Obama does?
But do you want to be complimented by that former KGB officer?
Well, I think when he calls me brilliant, I'll take the compliment, okay?
Every American president has a strategy. At least we as voters and those subject to those ideas certainly hope he or she does. And when it comes to the Russian president, who many, backed by the lessons of history, call killer, thug, despot, and a lot worse, even those from his inner circle are wondering what President Donald Trump's game is when it comes to Vladimir Putin.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you?
But
Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world,
right,
major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
That comment by President Trump on Super Bowl Sunday still has many, including hardcore Republicans, aghast at the inference. As last time checks were made, America was not annexing sovereign nations, leaving cities and towns bombed out rubble, and helping create the greatest refugee crisis since World War II. After all, why should anyone ever trust a man who openly steals a man's jewelry in broad daylight?
There is the famous story of you going to Russia in 2005 and showing Vladimir Putin your Super Bowl ring, and he walked off with it. I got several questions. One, did he ever give it back?
No.
Two, did you have a replacement ring made for the ring that President Putin absconded with?
Yes, but I was willing to have one made with his name on it. Maybe we'll have the new president bring it to him when he connects with him.
Even his own party would like to hear more than platitudes and cliches from President Trump about his Russian counterpart, and fewer comparisons to murder and alleged election interference on a massive scale. JD, back to you.
Thank you, Ed. Let's talk more about this by bringing back our panel again via Skype from New York City. Betsy McCaughey, former Lieutenant Governor of New York, and from Newsmax, Washington, John Griffing, John, Associate Editor for The Daily Caller. So, Ed made mention of the president's comments earlier, but it's worth revisiting. Trump questioning whether the United States is really all that innocent. Here it is again.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent? You think our country's so innocent?
I don't know of any government leaders that are killers in America.
Well, take a look at what we've done too. We've made a lot of mistakes. I've been against the war in Iraq from the beginning.
Yeah, mistakes are different than...
A lot of mistakes, okay, but a lot of people were killed. So a lot of killers around, believe me.
All right, so you got that on one hand, and then you have, from Moscow, the Kremlin demanding that Fox News apologize after Bill O'Reilly calls Vladimir Putin a killer. Betsy, first to what Mr. Trump had to say, and secondly to the Kremlin's demand.
Well, I'm laughing at the Kremlin's demanding an apology from Fox News. I guess they have pretty thin skin over there. But I would say this. I think it's very important and laudable that Donald Trump takes a temperate position when he talks about foreign leaders publicly. No matter what his private views are, he is correct that there is no reason to recklessly antagonize anyone with insults during an interview before a football game, whether it's Russia or Korea or any other nation. That's not how diplomacy is conducted. So I think he held his own in that.
Yeah, John, you know, it is worth recalling that presidents are in a sensitive position after all, and though President Trump often speaks from the heart and/or gut or off the sleeve, and he seems to have this connection with so many American people. He at least seems to me to understand, hey, you don't go around calling another leader of a country a killer. Had he done that, the headlines today would be Trump calls Putin a killer.
Exactly, J.D. The idea that Fox or any in the media would expect the President of the United States to accost verbally the leader of the only other major nuclear power in the world after such tense and dicey foreign policy between our two countries over the last 8 years is laughable. And it's part of this narrative, J.D., of the liberal media trying to fit Trump into this idea of being Putin's spank or Russia's servant in the United States. They can't prove the narrative, so they keep trying to find ways to frame interviews like this in that light. And it's just laughable.
Well, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. If he had spoken aggressively and hostilely about Putin, he'd be criticized today for that.
Yeah, I guess it goes with a job, doesn't it, gang? Hey, one other note we should make here, and that is the rise of Republican criticism over those remarks. For example, Marco Rubio. Take a look at his tweet. When has a Democratic political activist been poisoned by the GOP or vice versa? We are not the same as Putin. Yeah, but this is a false comparison, is it not, John? We're not talking about domestic political violence, are we?
Well, this is a false dichotomy, but number one, let's remember that Ted Kennedy actually did request that the General Secretary of the Soviet Union then, in memorandums, this is documented, intervene in the 1984 elections to kill Reagan's chances and to set him up to be president. I mean, the idea that Trump, who has no proven connections to Russia, simply trying to ride the fence and make sure he's not attacking the only other major nuclear power is somehow an evidence of his, his compliance with Russian foreign policy objectives. That's absurd, and we need to get away from the campaign of 2016. Marco Rubio, I respect the guy. He needs to stop campaigning.
That's right. Senator Rubio has not gotten over the fact that Donald Trump called him Little Marco and put him in his place.
And unfortunately, Senator Rubio, along with Senators McCain and Graham, and a growing chorus of establishment senators who've been pro-amnesty in the past, seem to find all these problems with the president. But there's something else out there besides the traditional political give and take. Iran is bragging about boosting its uranium supply. Their nuclear chief told the government's semi-official news agency that after a delivery tomorrow, Iran will have stockpiled 60% more uranium than it did prior to that infamous nuclear deal President Obama made in 2015. Right. Boy, they are delighting, John, in the fact that they said one thing and now they're doing something else. Your take.
Well, this is peace in our time, Neville Chamberlain personified. I mean, this is a man, Obama, our former president, who gave Iran $400 million in cash, gave them a drone. Dick Cheney was furious when the president allowed the drone to be captured by the Iranians. Has allowed our sailors to be virtually embarrassed and made an object of shame in front of the entire world. This is the president we're talking about. He was worse than Jimmy Carter, who crashed helicopters into the desert, in a botched attempt to save hostages in Iran in '79. So that's really the framework for what we're seeing now. And
fair enough. Let me turn to Betsy. Thanks, John. Let me turn to Betsy for the last word. 30 seconds, Betsy.
I'd like to know where that uranium is being delivered from. As you recall, in Clinton cash, it was documented that Mrs. Clinton, as Secretary of State, facilitated a Russian company acquiring a controlling interest in American uranium supplies.
Got to get the Geiger counter out and check around the Clinton estate, metaphorically speaking. Betsy McCaughey and John, we thank you both very much for your time. Always good to visit and get your respective perspectives.